In the June City Council meeting for Carmel-by-the-Sea, California, people called in for the open public comment section for items which were not on the agenda.
That's item number 7, I think it is. Yes, it is. Item number 7. Thank you.
Jude, go ahead.
Jude, the floor is yours.
Coming through all right? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, the reason why I wanted to speak up today was that, I don't particularly agree with any of the LGBTQ movement. And so I don't understand, we act like this small minority of people is so special and needs to get catered to, but when, in all actuality, the majority of the public doesn't go along with this stuff. We don't really think it's healthy or wholesome. So unless, I mean, would you? I'm an actual literal Nazi, and I.
Sorry, that's an unacceptable speech.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said it's unacceptable speech.
Who's deciding up there what's acceptable speech?
I am.
Nazis aren't welcome.
Exactly.
Who's making that decision? You?
Yep.
Mayor?
Yes, I am.
You're deciding that speech is not free?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's unacceptable what he was talking about. Nazi speech is not acceptable.
Okay, so you're deciding.
I'm not having a debate with you, ma'am.
That there's certain speech
Yeah.
that people cannot engage in?
Correct.
Is that you?
Ma'am, I'm not having a debate with you.
Law?
Ma'am,
Sir, isn't that protected under the First Amendment? I'm not agreeing with what you're saying.
we're not having a debate about free speech tonight, ma'am.
Pardon me?
We're not having a debate about free speech tonight.
You're not having an argument about free speech?
We're not having a debate about free speech tonight.
Is that what you said? We're not having an argument about free speech?
I did not say that. I said we're not having a debate.
Is that not protected under the
You
First
may,
Amendment?
you may want to call a
Hate speech is not
recess,
protected.
and we can clear this room if we need to, and then we can deal with the person who is disrupting this meeting. That's your choice.
This
If the
guy
person
is disrupting
continues
the
to
meeting.
disrupt,
He doesn't
we will
have
take
the
care of
authority
it,
to tell
but
us
it's your
what
choice.
we cannot say
Thank
during
you.
the meeting.
Okay, we're going to adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes.
Over and over and over again, the courts rule that speech may not be abridged except in very limited circumstances like fighting words. Otherwise, we must be purists and make politicians at every opportunity and in the moment call them out and demand they respect that fundamental right. There's a near endless list of these types of cases. I'm only going to read off a fraction. If there's a bedrock principle underlying the First Amendment, it is that the government may not prohibit the expression of an idea simply because society finds the idea itself offensive or disagreeable. Texas v. Johnson, U.S. Supreme Court ruling. One man's vulgarity is another's lyric. Cohen v. California. It is firmly settled that under our Constitution, the public expression of ideas may not be prohibited merely because the ideas are themselves offensive to some of their hearers. Street v. New York. The result we have reached is dictated by the fundamental proposition that if these civil rights are to remain vital for all, they must protect not only those society deems acceptable, but also those whose ideas it is quite justifiably rejects and despises. Collin v. Smith, and that's 7th Circuit. And this one is going to be a real zinger when I read it off at the next City Council meeting. A speaker may not be stopped from speaking because the moderator disagrees with the viewpoint he is expressing. White v. City of Norwalk, 9th Circuit, and that is my court here in California. And this is the law which governs these types of meetings in California. The people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. The people, in delegating authority, do not give their public servants, that would be you guys up there, the right to decide what is good for the people to know and what is good for them not to know. From the Brown Act. But how is the mayor supposed to be guided by the law and the Constitution when this is the guy advising him on it? But alas, violations of the Brown Act and our First Amendment rights don't stop there. Neither does the ignorance of Chief Paul Tomasi. So let's continue.
Hi, you're welcome to record me. I'm just going to tell you, if you continue to disrupt the meeting, we're going to ask you to leave. It is unlawful to disrupt a public meeting.
Okay,
So
it's unlawful for him to violate our rights.
That's fine. You can have your opinion, and
It's not an opinion, that's the law.
Okay, if you continue to disrupt the meeting, I will have someone come here and remove you. That is the law also.
Okay,
You've
why
made
are
your
they
point.
why are they having closed session? Now, I've only started studying the Brown Act, but it does look like these paragons of the law and constitutionally protected rights, again, didn't get a memo from Sleepy the Dwarf, also known as the city attorney Brian Pyrick, who was in the closed session with them. They were required to include a description of the items to be discussed, and I believe that was 72 hours in advance, or disclose in an open meeting the item or items to be discussed in the closed session, which clearly they didn't do either.
They're not. It's 5 o'clock. They're closing.
Okay.
Thank you. No more conflict. Nothing more for me. The next person you
Okay,
talk to,
so
if you continue to
you're going to
disrupt this
arrest
meeting,
me for
I'm not
exercising my free speech?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Look up the law. It's disrupting a public meeting. There is a code section for it in our law.
Wait, I'm sorry. What did he say? Your law, huh? You guys should know already that I'm going to find how very, very wrong you are. Penal Code 403 of Crimes and Punishments. Every person who, without authority of law, willfully disturbs or breaks up any assembly or meeting that is not unlawful in its character, other than an assembly or meeting referred to in Section 302 of the Penal Code or Section 18340 of the Elections Code, is guilty of a misdemeanor. You would think at this point they're tired of me exposing how very little they know about their own codes and the laws. But it's possible they're masochists. Because if you read between the lines on this penal code, it therefore means that I, as one of the people, do have the authority of law to disturb the meeting if it is unlawful in its character. For example, when my servant, drunk on his own illusion of power, believes he is an emperor who can tape our mouth shut if he doesn't like what we're saying. But please, Chief Tomasi, continue to thrill us with your law acumen. That is...
Not yours, ours.
What law is that?
Look it up.
What law is that? I know what it is.
Do you? What is it? You tell me.
I asked you
I
first.
don't need to tell you.
Of course you do.
No, I don't.
You're law enforcement. What is the law? He can't answer because he doesn't know what it is. This is the law, Chief Tomasi. It's called the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. What is the law?
Have a good night. You're welcome to attend, but you can't disrupt anymore. Thank you.
Okay,
We'll
well-
advise you if we have to arrest you. We'll
Okay, you don't
advise
have
you
to
at the
advise
level.
me of anything.
I just
Why
told
aren't
you
you
the
telling
law.
him that... Wait, we have to go through this again? You just told me the law? No, you didn't. You didn't know what it was. You told me to look it up and then asked me to tell you. Come on, buddy. Do better. He cannot violate our rights. That's your job.
He's the mayor.
That's your job.
He's the mayor.
Your job is
He's
to
holding
protect
a-
our rights.
He's holding a public meeting. He made a decision you didn't like. You spoke your mind.
He's
That's
violating
fine.
our
You had your
rights.
right to speak until it becomes a disruption and we can no longer conduct the city's business.
Okay,
Once
so
that
why are
happens,
you allowing
you
him
have
to
go
violate
leave.
our
Have a good
First
night.
Amendment right?
Have a good night. Thank you. No more comments from me.
And then, apparently, Tomasi called in the mayor's private security to keep order, or more accurately said, to serve as a threat. Well, why not go out and face the threat head on? And why are they here? Because a patriot in the meeting did their jobs for them and stopped criminals from committing crimes. I don't see why they would allow a woman civilian to take up the mantle of protecting the people's rights, because isn't that their duty? This is who my friends and I like to refer to as Special Needs Officer Gerald Maldonado. You might recognize him from our interaction in February of 2021.
You guys are unbelievable. You're unbelievable. Stop telling me. You're
Or this one from just last year, when, before he figured out who I was, threatened to rip me out of the car and steal my property because I didn't pay what amounts to a modern-day tax on tea, and then actually tried to rip me out of my car.
Okay, remain silent all you want. Step out of the vehicle.
But then he ran my license. His entire demeanor changed. He said things like, "I'm just explaining to you," and got back in his vehicle with his tail between his legs and left me alone to go about my day. This protector is one and the same detective or corporal or whatever he is, Jacob Clifford of the Carmel Police Department, who helped to keep the public safe from violating the 6-foot social distancing rule by engaging in a 3-man dog pile, slamming a guy's head into the surf as he tried to walk his dog, chained him, and let him get dragged off to a dungeon 30 miles away. What would we do without these brave men to keep us safe? And here's Councilmember Bobby Richards, who sat just off to the right of Potter when he muted the caller's mic. And just last month, Councilmember Richards stood to say he gives the utmost reverence to our veterans.
12 to come up front, please. I'm going to do it a little bit different. I want to stand up and read this, if you don't mind. Is this okay? I'd also like to recognize any of the other veterans in this build. I know Gerard. I'm not sure if anybody else. Please, this goes out to you as well. So, whereas our brave military servicemen and women, their families, and their loved ones have made great sacrifices to protect the freedoms we enjoy. Whereas this month and throughout the year, we recognize our local service members and veterans and remember with deep gratitude the men and women who have given their lives in defense of our freedom. Jerry, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I have to say that is really special to me, and I appreciate everybody that served. Just a couple months ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and I spent one whole day walking around the memorials, and it's pretty powerful. Thank you for your service.
And so, Councilmember Richards, what happened to the deep gratitude for the lives of the veterans that were sacrificed, if you can sit there in silence to watch the mayor violate the very principles they died defending?
If you continue to disrupt the meeting, you'll be arrested.
So you're going to violate my First Amendment right? Actually, it would be the caller's First Amendment right. It is an unknown as to whether they would have arrested me again, but if another caller's mic got muted because the mayor was under the impression that he had subjects rather than bosses, I would have disrupted the meeting again anyway. They must know by now, getting arrested isn't nearly as bothersome to me as watching our servants behave as though they are our masters, with serfs that can be so easily subjugated by their whims. And I'm sure he remembers that I've already beaten the 3 criminal charges they thought they could get stick to me, and I did that all without an attorney. And here they are returning from closed session. What they were required to do was to inform the people as to what was discussed, but they won't do that. Instead, they engage in more shenanigans.
Okay, we're going to reconvene the meeting. And we're going to go ahead and continue with public testimony. We'll let Mr. What's his name?
There's no, oh wait,
Where'd he go?
phone number ending in 837, go ahead.
Okay, no, hold on. We're going to read the rules of the operation. So, Counselor, would you please read in the limitations and confines of public speaking?
Yes, this has to do with the provisions of the Brown Act. It's in the city's agenda, and I'll just read this from it. Under the Brown Act, public comment for matters on the agenda must relate to that agenda item, and public comments for matters not on the agenda must relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this legislative body. If a member of the public attending the meeting remotely violates the Brown Act by failing to comply with these requirements of the Brown Act, then that speaker will be muted.
Ooh, Brian and Co. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. That's not at all the reason Mayor Mussolini muted that guy's mic. Obviously, I have no idea what happened when they went into closed session, but a good guess would be that the city attorney informed them that I was right. And what we just listened to was damage control and sleight of hand, sidestepping the issue to claim it had to do with the caller being muted because he wasn't speaking on issues pertaining to the legislative body. But remember, this was open public comment, and he said he didn't agree with the announcements the legislative body had made earlier in the meeting. And after muting his mic, the mayor said,
Sorry, that's an unacceptable speech.
Wouldn't it have been grand if they had instead reconvened and admitted their error, that they overstepped their bounds and had no right to mute the caller? Please, Jude, call back in and we will protect your right to speak your mind and voice your ideas. However offensive we may find them. We can't talk out of one side of our mouths about how we honor the veterans while limiting the rights of our bosses. That's not how government works. It's ironic that although the caller may have uttered the words that he was a Nazi, Mayor Dave Potter acted like one. Actions always speak louder than words. If anyone wants more proof that even offensive ideas, such as the one uttered by the caller, must be allowed to be heard, comes to us from just last month, when a faculty advisor for a high school was placed on leave when she allowed the editor of the school paper to print what one student heard another say in class, that Hitler's got some good ideas. Groups such as the First Amendment Coalition and the ACLU didn't take too kindly to that and came to the advisor's defense, writing letters to the superintendent of the district urging her to reinstate the advisor by writing, without condoning the content of the quote, "We are troubled by the district's response to it," said Chessie Thatcher of the ACLU. The First Amendment and California law prohibit such censorship and retaliatory treatment. Yep. And unless there are material facts beyond those reported in the press, it appears that the district has unlawfully retaliated against Ms. Archuleta for defending the freedom of the student press, as well as exercising her own free speech rights. I couldn't have said it better myself, dear ACLU, but I did the best I could.